Welcome back to another episode, and today's episode is the case of the toy collector. And as you can see pictured here, we do have various cases for various toy lines over the course of about a 20-year span, from late 70s to the early 90s. These are all different shapes and sizes to encompass all the different shapes and sizes of figures throughout those years. We will start off this showcase with two of the most iconic toy cases ever. Definitely one of these almost everybody would immediately recognize. The other one maybe not so much, but it's part of the same line, part of the same era. Something I do want to stress over that particular case there is if you ever find one out in the wild, and a yard sale, flea market, what have you, when you check it out, don't just say, oh, it's another Darth Vader case. I see those are a dime a dozen. Pick it up, check it out. These have 3 flaps that hold it together. And something I've learned is that they might have little hidden surprises inside. Normally they come with these little guards. A lot of these are labeled. Oftentimes those are missing. You can see this row is missing. But one thing here, this little compartment right here, I don't know if you can see it very well, always check that. If you ever pick up one of these and hear anything rattling, sometimes they won't because they'll be packed in there. Pop this bad boy open. I've probably found a dozen of these in the wild. Maybe more, maybe less. Haven't bought them all. I think I've got like 4 or 5 of these in my personal inventory. And I have found weapons in there regularly. They get forgot about because that case, that little compartment is hidden. It's black. It hides against the back. Not everybody thinks to check it. And especially if you're finding a yard sale or something, nobody's going to check it. They're just like, oh, here's a toy case. Often, a lot of these toy cases, when I find them, they have goodies on the inside. You can hear something rattling, lightweight rattling. Sometimes there's figures in them. But I found figures inside these cases when I bought them. And I still remember one of my most iconic case purchases. And I'm going to pause real quick, and I'm going to go over to that case and I'm going to explain it. So hold on one moment. So this Superpowers case here, this has a very special story attached to it. Back when I worked at the flea market, I had a booth that sold a lot of random vintage stuff. It was more like a glorified yard sale type deal. I went to estate sales and bought all sorts of things, and kind of gravitated towards the toy section a little bit later on in its life. And I had a guy that set up a booth. He had a bunch of toys and whatnot, and I went over there, and I'm still new to the game. Don't know a lot about a lot of stuff. I know, I'm starting to learn the ropes. Mostly Transformers, G.I. Joes, because there's so much online information that you can find on those to help you out with ID guides and things of that nature. So this guy, he's got a bunch of figures, 3 3/4 figures, Superpowers, Secret Wars, Toy Biz stuff, and he had these cases, and each case was packed full, and he was like $20 per case. So I asked him, I was like, so that's for everything? He said, yes. Each case, it's got figures already in it. If you don't like the figures that are in it, you can mix and match you want, but each case is $20. So I was like, okay. I wound up buying like 4 cases. The Superpowers was one of them. This was long before I even started collecting Superpowers. So this was in my early days. And everybody's got these sweet stories. And so I'm like, okay, that's a no-brainer. Even if I got, $2 a piece out of each of the figures, these cases were holding, like, some of them 15 to 24 figures. So I know that I'm going to make my money back, and plus it's inventory for my booth. And anyway, I decided, this Superpowers one is really nice. I'm going to take this one home and check it out. And I open it up, and sure enough, it's got a complete Green Lantern. It's got I would say a complete Green Arrow, but I think he is missing one of his extra arrows, so he's about complete enough for my taste. Had Flash, had Superman with his cape, had Batman with the cape, Robin with the cape, and I still have them. They're all still part of my collection. So these aren't things that I got rid of. Had Samurai in it, had Joker in it, it had Mr. Freeze in it, it had Aquaman in it, it had Hawkman in it, had their accessories, had their little card back cutouts and their little instruction booklets and the 2 little pockets inside this case. I don't want to pull it out because of the way it's sitting in here. And I started, you know, looking all these things up, and it just blew my mind how the value of this was. So I kind of freaked out a little bit. You know, I took it home that Sunday because the flea market only runs on the weekend. And this guy that came in, I think he'd only set up for like 2 weeks. It was one of those little booths out in the middle of the aisle, and he just set up temporarily. Long story short, I made out like a bandit on the superpowers thing. There's a comic book dealer in the flea market that I've dealt with a lot over the years, and he heard about it, and it was bittersweet. He appreciated the find. He was not happy he wasn't there first, but that's how it is. You know, there's a mutual respect where, you know, finders keepers, first come first serve kind of deal. And so he knew what was there, and he knew that he missed out, and kind of congratulated me while biting his tongue. You know, it's one of those situations. It's a good rivalry to have, you know, with other people. It kind of keeps you on your toes. As long as it doesn't spiral to a negative, you know, aspect, a good rivalry amongst collectors and amongst dealers is always good because it keeps you competitive. It keeps you on your toes. It keeps you out there hunting, out there looking. And, you know, it's one of those things. And this case kind of really set off my superpowers collection because it was almost like a start all in one go. So that was one of my biggest finds, especially of my early toy collecting, selling seasons. Long story short, that's kind of what blossomed my superpowers collection, and here we are. Anyway, back to the other cases. And as you can see, this is another Star Wars case. It definitely takes the shape of one of the blasters, rifles in the Return of the Jedi. It's got clips that hold it together as well. Undo the clips. Open it up, and it's kind of the same scenario as the Darth Vader helmet. This one's got some UV damage, and this one also has a compartment, which obviously, you know, it's empty. But always, whenever you find these cases, always check these compartments. If you ever pick up a case and hear something rattling around, you know, it could be something good. It could be dirt. It could be a rat turd. But it could be a B-Wing pilot blaster, or, you know, a Palace blaster from Last 17 figure. It's just, you never know. So take a gamble. Always check those compartments. And these cases are very durable. They're hard plastic. These things can withstand a lot of beating. You don't have to store them very delicately. Keep them out of direct sunlight. Maybe keep them out of direct heat, but these are some of the coolest, most iconic cases that I can think of. This leads us into our Transformers cases. And as you can see, both of these cases are completely different sizes, completely different shapes. Well, maybe not completely, but very distinctly different cases. We will start with the big one here, the Mumbo Jumbo. This guy is large. As you can tell by the scale of my hand, it's pretty big. But the cool thing about this one, I love the inside display of it. This one, probably one of my favorite cases. You've got the imagery inside showcasing the Seekers, the mini bots. You've got the different shelving. Now this one I had in my Transformers display, and I actually had the Seekers up in here, and I had some mini bots on the bottom shelf, and it was pretty cool, but I didn't like the way it sat up on the shelf. But with that said, the cool thing about this one is you got this little compartment here to store the accessories, put them in little sandwich baggies or whatnot that go to the figures, and put them in there. So this case holds some of the bigger bots. Whenever I used it, the fact that it doesn't have like the dividers, it doesn't hold figures in place very well. So what I was doing is I would wrap them with bubble wrap, or, you know, put them in a sandwich bag and wrap them with like brown paper, like brown paper bags, to keep them from flopping around. Still has the clasp. It still works. And the big thing with these bigger guys is they do tend to get crushed. These are basically cardboard, not even as thick as cardboard, overlaid in plastic. And they're not super durable, so you do have to be careful on storage with these, on how you're going to display them, where you're going to put them, because putting heavy things on them can cause damage. And that's just got such beautiful artwork on it. I would hate to see any of that defaced or damaged because of neglect. I just noticed the Decepticon logo on both sides. It's interesting where you got Optimus Prime and then the giant Decepticon logo on both sides. But this is definitely one of the cooler ones that I've got in my collection for my Transformers. Mainly because it's got such great artwork on it. It's large, so it's a great display piece. But the inside, the interior is what really makes it. I love the way the interior looks. We go on to the smaller one. This is more the briefcase style case. It's not super big. It's probably reminiscent of like a G.I. Joe carrying case. I think that they came around a similar size because it is for smaller figures. This one doesn't have a clasp. It's just got the fold where the handle comes through the opening here. That kind of keeps it in place. You open it up, and then you've got the little storage shells on the inside. Forgive my whole display area here falling apart. This one's got the single tray. I don't think it came with multiple trays. Maybe it did. Maybe they're inside one another. No, I think it's just a single tray. And you do have to also be very careful with that style tray because it's thin plastic. 30, 40 years of wear, of time, can cause that plastic to become so brittle. So you do have to be very careful. But this one looks like it would house like a lot of your G1s, like your first aid in one of the bigger compartments, maybe a Jazz or something, and then like your mini bots, mini cons, and little side compartments, or smaller figures like Insecticons or something in like these top two slots. So this does help cover some of the smaller bots, where the other case is definitely great for some of the bigger bots. And again, amazing artwork. If I'm not mistaken, that's the same artwork or very similar artwork to what's on the back of a lot of the Transformers boxes. I think it's slightly different perspective. I think it's cut off somewhere right around here and goes up higher. But the artwork on these cases is really what makes these so popular in the collecting world. Because they make great backdrops for displays. They make great spot fillers for displays. And the artwork, they just don't put, in my opinion, this stuff, a lot of it was hand done. And that's just art in itself. I can't say that enough. And here we are, another style, kind of like the Transformers Jumbo Collector case, just, a bit smaller. This is to encompass the like 4 or 5 inch Toy Biz X-Men figures that were extremely popular in the 90s. And I've got several in my collection as well. This one also has, I think there's 2 different layers to this case. If I'm not mistaken, the bottom layer is a little more divided than this one. So, you've got something for maybe card backs or some bigger figures, maybe accessories on the side. And then you reach inside, and the inner tray is more for individual figures. And, Toy Biz figures, they weren't universal like your G.I. Joe, where they're all 3.75 inches tall and so forth and so on. They weren't as, diverse in size as Transformers, but you had some 4-inch skinny figures, you had some 4-inch very wide figures, you had figures with all these add-on, like arm guards and things of that nature, so they did have to accommodate for different size figures in this case. And like I said, it is very similar to the Transformers Jumbo case, as in the fact that it's got the compressed cardboard housing shell that's wrapped in plastic, but it does have this kind of vinyl almost layer on the inside. The clasp mechanism does still work. This one's a little dusty. It's got the handle still attached up top. And again, the artwork on these cases is what really makes them great for a collector. This kind of mimics the front almost of a comic with your little marquee up here, the name. And it's also, okay, so it says comics and cards. Hold 6 figures, comics and cards. So that's what that big slot's for, maybe, is comics and trading cards. But this encompasses basically the 90s X-Men. I mean, you've got Bishop, you've got Rogue, Gambit, Magneto, Omega Red, Professor X, Sabretooth and Wolverine. I loved that rivalry. Cyclops, Mr. Sinister. Looks like maybe Colossus's hand back here. So yeah, if it was 90s X-Men, that's it. This is just, you know, again, the artwork. I love it. Moving on in no real order, we have another case. Little oddly shaped compared to the rest of them. It's got this kind of like trapezoid type, rhombus type shape. This is for the Batman, the animated series. By far, probably one of the best renditions of Batman. Mark Hamill is the Joker. This, you know, the intro to this cartoon was a masterpiece in itself. This was just such a great cartoon, especially for its era, that I don't think that they've been able to touch since. And that's not to say that, you know, later renditions of Batman or other cartoons weren't good. Batman the Animated Series, though, holds its own place. It's definitely a great cartoon. This one doesn't have any clasp. It's got the same handle and the hole feature to kind of help keep it closed. I haven't opened this one in a while. Okay, so this one probably had 2 shelves. There's just the one in there. And again, Toy Biz. Was it Toy Biz that did Batman? I don't think it was. I can't remember. Maybe Kenner. The Batman figures also had various sizes. So you had to worry about, you know, being able to cover the skinny figures, the wider figures, the figures with all these add-ons and accessories. And again, very cool artwork. Definitely straight from the cartoon itself. Amazing Joker. Just this was a masterpiece. You got the Penguin here. On the side, got Catwoman there. Got the museum. It's just oddly shaped, but I like it. Here's another really cool case, and it's different. You know, these I'm trying to showcase ones that are different designs, different aesthetics, different features. This one is a completely plastic hard shell case. It kind of marries the style from the Star Wars cases to the conventional case, but it's not, you know, specifically shaped for any kind of character or anything, but it does have the hard shell case. Now this utilizes 2 little clasps or levers on the side that slide down these and hold these little clips in place. Unfortunately, this one is broken on that side, but it does still stay closed. So you typically lift that up, you pull that down like a door, and then you've got your little compartment for your Gobots. And I've just got random stuff in here for now, some knockoff Gobots. But you can hold 13 different Gobots in there, individual ones. Probably fit a couple, 2 or 3 maybe, in one of the bigger compartments. If you do store things like that, wrap them in paper towels just so they don't scuff one another. It's good practice. That way you don't have metal on metal, plastic on plastic, and deal with paint rubs. Bubble wrap's great, but bubble wrap can take up space. So if you just take some paper towels, wrap the figure, put it in there, you can wrap another one, put it right on top, and usually helps prevent damage. But, you know, it's not 100%. But I do like this case. It's got the handle up top. It's Small in stature. It's not bulky. It's not big. You grab it, you go. You take your favorite Gobots to your buddy's house, and you have at it. Great little display piece as well. Again, the artwork here. Now, this one's not quite as in-depth or fancy as some of the other ones, but you do still have like your Leader 1, Psykill, Spacey. Can't remember his name off the top of my head. But you do have like your logos, so it's very clear what this case is for. Good colors, it pops, and the decal's still in pretty good shape. And then we have this guy. This is the Gobots Command Center. Staying with the last Gobots that we did, this guy is multiple things in one. It's a figure on its own. It's a giant landwalker. It is a play set. You fold the legs up, stand it on its rear, open the chest cavity, and it's got all sorts of stuff in there for your Gobots to do. It's got lights. It's got a little face on the flip side of this. But it is also considered a carrying case. It says right on the box, Gobots Command Center, friendly Gobot mobile fortress. Fortress that turns into vehicle or space-age landwalker. This Gobot's action set features flashing lights and warning alarm, secret strategy chamber, enemy Gobot detectors, storage for up to 12 Gobot figures, and built-in handle for easy carrying. So yes, I would still classify that into a carrying case. Even though that's not its main feature, it is definitely still a feature. So when it comes to carrying cases, this one does more than the rest. It is a toy, it's a play set, it's a carrying case all in one. You can't really beat that. Now that's not all as far as cases go. There are many more. I didn't showcase several, mainly because I didn't have any on hand. If I could fill up a whole room almost of storage cases, they make some really, really cool ones. There's this one bootleg, kind of like fantasy warrior case that was stylized after Masters of the Universe, but the artwork on it, it was cheesy, but it was good cheesy. It reminded me a lot of like the older, early Dungeons and Dragons style. But they've got cases for all sorts. Cases of, as you saw, different shapes, different sizes. G.I. Joe cases out the wazoo. G.I. Joe's not one of my focuses. I do have a smaller shelf dedicated to G.I. Joe, but nothing compared to a lot of the friends that I know. So there are many, many, many more cases. And they're a favorite of mine because the artwork, the functionality, the displayability, and in some aspects, just the utility of them. The Gobots Command Center being one of the coolest in my opinion, followed by the Jumbo Transformers one. I would probably put, in terms of the ones that I currently have, the Jumbo Transformers one is probably going to be my favorite, just because the size, the art, how it displays, for a multitude of reasons. So yeah, cases, you got to have them. You got toys. Where are you going to put them when you're going to grandma's? Where are you going to put them when you're going to, go spend the night with your buddy? You're going to have to carry your figures somewhere. You don't want to just, throw them in an old lunchbox, although, a lot of us did that. I've got a lunchbox behind me on one of my shelves that, it's a mask lunchbox, one of the plastic ones. It's got stickers all over it, and there was just a bunch of random toys inside of it, because that's just how it was. But these cases, they definitely fit into any collector's collection, whether it be, Batman, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Gobots, you name it, it's probably got a collector case for it. And if you can get your hands on one that's not all beat up, all broken in, it's definitely something to accentuate your collection. If you've got a spot in your shelf that just feels bare, think about grabbing a collector case, putting it back there. It's great artwork, great backsplash, and they're just, in my opinion, just great overall. Anyway, thanks for coming to another episode of the Case of the Toy Collector. and I will see you again soon.